Now, if you've been on the M1 at all in the past few months, you will know just how much traffic and delays there have been. It's because National Highways are adding 22 emergency refuge areas to the smart motorway as part of a 390 million, I'm presuming, national programme, and follows a series of accidents on the roads. Our reporter Spencer Stokes has been speaking to Duncan Smith from Highways England.
At National Highways, safety is our number one priority, and it's not just about being safe, it's about feeling safe. And we've listened to road users who've told us that there's more that we can do to make them feel safe on motorways where there isn't a permanent hard shoulder. And that's why we're introducing 150 new emergency areas on all lane running sections of motorway in the next year and a half.
In retrospect, should you have added more at the beginning of the Smart Motorway programme?
The Smart Motorway programme was designed to relieve congestion and to ease congestion in traffic hotspot areas. We delivered the programme. Those motorways are safer than the roads that they replaced, but we know that there's more that we can do to help motorists feel safe on those roads, which is why we're introducing these new bays.
So it's kind of two-pronged, really. It's about making them safer, but also making people feel safer. Is
Absolutely.
that right?
The perception of safety is really important to us, which is why we've also updated the highway code. We've launched our safety campaign about going left if you have a problem. So our advice always, if you're travelling on any motorway or indeed any road and you're experiencing an issue, get off the motorway, get off at the nearest junction or at the services, and if you can't, get as far left as you can, whether that's a hard shoulder or into one of the bays where there's all lane runnings on that motorway.
The bays, the refuge areas, replace the hard shoulder on all lane running motorways. It doesn't make it any easier for emergency vehicles to get through, though, does it, by adding extra refuge areas? They still have to try and find a way through, stop traffic.
So one of the key features of a all-lane running section of the motorway is that we have gantry signs overhead at a very frequent basis. And if there is instances that emergency services need to get to the front of a queue, then we'll close a lane with a red X. That frees a lane for emergency services to get to where they need to go.
A huge amount of money is being spent on the Smart Motorway programme. It's still controversial. Has it really been worth it?
So it's absolutely been worth the investment. Number one, we've improved the safety on the roads of where we've applied this type of road construction. In terms of death and serious injuries, which every incident is a tragedy on our roads, but the safety performance of those roads is higher than any other roads in England, and we're incredibly proud of that. It's also solved the congestion issue that those motorways were there experiencing in the first place. So yes, it's been a success.
Well, let's chat to someone now who says these refugees aren't a solution and wants to see the return of the hard shoulder. Claire Mercer's husband was killed on a smart motorway near Sheffield in 2019 and has been campaigning since his death. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Claire, we have spoken to you a lot on BBC Radio Sheffield, but just for anyone who hasn't heard your story before, do you mind telling us what happened to your husband?
He was just on his way to work one Friday morning. It should have just been a bad start to the day. They had a bump on the motorway, and it should have just been a bad start to the day. They should have been on their way in 10 minutes. But because they couldn't get their vehicles out of the live running lane because of the crash barrier, because they couldn't get over the crash barrier because of the 30-foot drop the other side, as a minor bump turned into a massive tragedy, the worst that area has seen in a long time. And it should never have happened. It didn't need to happen. And even when it did, even when they were already dead and past help, even then the technology didn't pick up what had happened, and it relied on members of the public phoning in for 10, 15, 20 minutes afterwards saying, for the love of God, close the motorway. So where's your technology there? It didn't save their lives, and even when they were dead, it didn't pick up the problem.
And you have ever since been campaigning for the restoration of the hard shoulder. This is, being touted as a sort of solution, these refuges. When you hear about them, what do you think?
Well, it's just, who thought it was a good idea? Normally, only two groups of people used the hard shoulder, and that's people that were having vehicle problems and the emergency services. Well, if you look at the first group, having vehicle problems, your vehicle is not going to break down where it's convenient, so the chances of you being able to get to a refuge area are very slim, and they can double the amount, but it's still slim. So that's half a compromise with what they're doing, increasing the number of refuge areas. But what about the emergency services? Refuge areas do not help emergency services in any way, shape or form. They can't hop from refuge area to refuge area. They are stuck in 4 lanes of stuck traffic. So you've been injured by this newly endangered motorway, and then the emergency services can't get to you.
They say their solution is that they'll close a lane with a red cross using those big signs that they have across the gangways in the motorway, and that will allow for emergency services.
How? If everything has come to a stop and all lanes are full, that there's stuck traffic in that lane. It's happened time. They couldn't even get the coroner through to Jason and Alexandru when they were dead. They were killed at 8:15 in the morning, and their bodies were still on the road at 5 o'clock at night because they couldn't airdrop a coroner in with coffins. So they couldn't even get a coroner through. Never mind an ambulance that's got 6 minutes to get to you.
You obviously feel very passionately about this, and every time I've ever spoken about this, I don't hear anyone, if I'm honest, saying, yeah, we don't mind there not being a hard shoulder. It's always people saying that this is what we want. And you've been campaigning for a long time now on this. Why do you think they're not doing it?
I think it's all tied up with the revenue they bring in, which has been exposed recently, the true scale of the revenue. That particular junction where Jason was killed, it's bringing in thousands and thousands of pounds a week.
From speed cameras?
Yes, because the speed camera technology is far superior to the technology dedicated to your life, saving your life. It's different cameras. So the one that will fine you for speeding or driving in a closed lane is a different camera entirely, and apparently nowhere near as fallible as the ones that is dedicated to saving your lives. They're always breaking down. I get whistleblowers contacting me all the time saying, we're out again, we can't see the motorway, I hope God's watching over you. That's a common one. I hope God's watching over you, because we aren't. And I get so many messages from people saying, I don't see my family as much anymore, I didn't travel, or I use the A roads. And the biggest one I get is, I will not use the first shoulder. But I can't condone that, because that's changing the way people drive. I understand why people do it, but if I'm seen to push that through, but I get thousands of contacts a month saying I will not use the first lane.
Goodness, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I have changed the way I am frightened to drive along the motorway with my children, because I think about what I would do. What would I do if I've got 2 kids in car seats in the back? It's hard enough to get them out of a car seat when you're in a car park sometimes, let alone when you're panicking, you're scared, they're scared, you're on a motorway. If you've got someone who is elderly, the time it's going to take is going to be, significant, and you might not even have enough time as a lithe young person who just has to unbuckle a seatbelt.
Well, I mean, as well as that, even if you're just on your own, you're meant to get out through the centre of the car. You're meant to get out through the left-hand side of the car. So you're meant to climb through. I can't do that. I'm 47 and I can't do that. And I don't have children, but the first time I got this message, and I've had it hundreds of times since, is I've got more than one child, which do I grab first? And that was like a punch in the gut, hearing that, because it just never even occurred to me. And you've got till the car behind you reaches the space you're in to get you and the kids out of the car. Derek Jacobs didn't make it out the door. Nargis Begum couldn't. She was 65. She couldn't leapfrog over the crash barrier. She was killed going over the crash barrier. Jason and Alexandra were 22 and 44, and neither had disabilities, but they couldn't get over the crash barrier because of a drop. An 8-year-old boy was killed on a viaduct smart motorway. What was he meant to do? Leap over the side? It doesn't work, and it's all to do with the massive £1 billion contracts that they can hand out to private companies and the revenue that these things bring in.
Do you think anything's going to change? I mean, this is supposed to be a change in the right direction. This is supposed to be an answer.
Yeah, well, they banned new smart motorways. They're not going to build any new smart motorways, which there was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds more of these things planned. So that was a big step, but it's the ones that are in and killing us already that are the problem. And luckily for us, this year, we've got an election, so they have to pretend they care. So I'm going to use the election to make sure they pay attention this time.
Claire Mercer, thank you so much for being with us. If you have any thoughts and feelings on this, if you have changed the way that you drive, or maybe it's not something that worries you, I'm going to be honest, I've not heard that to date, but if that is your perspective on this, do get in touch. It's 81333 if you're texting. It's 08000 111 30. Hang on a minute, I've got the right one. Yeah, 08000 321 333 is WhatsApp. You need to start your messages with the word Sheffield. Claire Mercer, thank you so much for being with us this morning. It is 11 minutes to 8.